Hello, and welcome to today's webcast on endpoint management strategies for secure, simplified environments brought to you by Insight. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast is designed to be interactive between you and the presenters. The webcast console you are looking at can be completely customized. You can resize or move any of the windows that you have open. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. All questions from this webcast will be captured and our speakers will answer throughout the presentation. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the question mark icon below the presentation window. The help guide covers common technical issues. I will now like to turn this presentation over to our Insight speakers, Senior Cybersecurity Architect Norm Anders and Senior Keith Basil. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jessica. Before we get started, let's run quickly through the agenda that we're planning for today. So we're going to talk a little bit about challenges to modernization, what kind of outcomes you can gain from your modernization effort, some of the tools that will be available, and those will be powered by Microsoft. There's an element of moving Windows 11 Pro, and then this aspect of your long-term success, and that's going to be powered by us, Insight. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. So the challenges that we see around modernization is the first one we come on to is shifting landscape. There's this remote and hybrid workforce. There are basically people, some are going to completely be remote, some people are going to be always on-prem, and other people are going to be back and forth in between. It causes some real challenges there with respect to the management and endpoint management of those devices as they span that different spectrum of locations. You have elements of elastic workforce where basically you can see seasonal workers will come and swell and first-line workers will come and go. That causes additional challenges because they too need to be connected to the modern applications and the world that we live in today. Not to discount the organizational expansion and change. We're talking M&A and divestitures and maybe even, to a sense, a large number of networks of partners that people deal with. There's elements of people want to bring their own devices or their own PCs, and there's goodness and badness that go along with that. This idea of these high-scale specialized workforces of CRM and these other solutions that are out basically software as a service that cause their own issues and problems with respect to connectivity and security, which brings us to security and compliance. And what's happening here is that there's a never-ending scrutiny approaching. Basically, all the new controls that are necessary to protect this hybrid type environment that we're looking at. So all in all, it starts to become a moving under our feet type world. Next slide, please. So again, challenges specifically to endpoint management. What we find here is that management solutions as a rule are complex, and they're getting worse as time goes on simply because the environment is so dynamic and so complex in itself. What we find here is that there's a tremendous amount of technical debt. Existing environments have a plethora of different point solutions for endpoint. I think the last last estimate was around 47 different point solutions for security and endpoint management per organization. Again, it gets to the point there where it's almost impossible to manage, let alone to be able to move forward into the modern world and make these modern applications and these access to these modern resources available. Modern endpoint security management is another one where basically you're seeing that use cases and the security footprint of the devices themselves are ever challenging, especially in the modern area. Endpoint management licenses underutilized. That's more of a symptom of not being modernized. Here we've got this great technology that's sitting on the shelf, mainly because of this technical debt that you might have and maybe the complexities that go around with trying to implement endpoint management solutions. A big one here, and this goes across all of technology and certainly most specifically in security and endpoint management, is trying to find and retain skilled resources and talent. Always a problem, and it's not getting better. Last but not least is the administrative support. Really in a sense here is there's a burgeoning of data that's coming out of these systems that needs to be consumed and assimilated and correlated. And you're looking for automation to be able to do that. Automation with respect to automated provisioning and administration, as well as entitlements, as well as basically the other element of you're alerting and watching basically what's happening in the environment. And you do need these modern endpoints to bring all this stuff together. Next slide, please. So let's say you can actually make it. You make it to Nirvana. You're at the modern workplace. What can you enjoy when you're there? Anywhere, anytime, secure access from any device to your resources. A big deal. Modernized management. So what we're talking about here is that now you're not blocked by your technical debt. You're able to move into these realms of new possibilities with applications and use cases and such. And you're not, again, this milestone tied around your neck or a millstone tied around your neck dealing with your old technical debt. So now you can move forward this with your modern management. Unifying process across services and endpoints is very important, because what we see here is that by being able to use a common element across all your devices, you start to be able to correlate and bring data together with respect to emerging threats, what actually is in the population, and just being able to not only consume all that telemetry and alerts that might be coming out of those, but also the sense is you have a good line of sight across all the devices with respect to their profile of application makeup and usage and the like. And out of all that becomes this ability to flexibly manage your on-cloud and on-premises resources. Because again, hybrid environments are here to stay, remote users are here to stay, and we need that flexibility in our environments to be able to address and support those and let those people do their jobs. So next slide. So what do you stand to gain from managed endpoint? Your complexity is going to go down, and as your complexity goes down, as you start to get rid of all those 47 solutions that I might have mentioned, you'll see that you'll start to maximize your ROI, because you'll start to be able to leverage those investments you made in the Microsoft license suite, and you'll be able to use those products across the board and integrate those. So your ROI is going to go improve. You're going to reduce your complexity. Along that same line, when you're able to get that modern environment up and running, now you don't have those technical blockers that would stand in your way to be able to implement a new application or a new platform. It's all out there for you, and it's just beckoning you to go forward. Along the same line, because that is being taken care of to the nth degree, now you can refocus your internal resources on those things that are strategic to your own business. Endpoint management is a core competency of Insight. It probably is not a core competency of your organization, nor should it be. So again, take those resources and focus them someplace that basically is helping you achieve your mission and your goals. And in addition to that too, we have this constantly reshaping environment with respect to threats and use cases that might be out there. Because of this modern platform that you're in, you're more agile, and you're more likely to be able to and easy to adapt to new things as they come down the road. And I can't stress enough too is this ability to use high levels of automation and AI to help optimize the performance across the board, whether it's being administrative or basically security and alerts and the such. So that's what you gain when you look at a managed endpoint solution, being able to tie those endpoints together, because they are fundamental to this concept of zero trust, because they are one of the primary signals that come back in to say whether this is a risky user or a risky sign-on. So leaving it at that, let's pass it to Keith, and we'll go for next. Very good.
All right. Thank you, Norm. So some of the key features of that advanced endpoint management, that Nirvana that Norm was just talking about, the centralized and consolidated device management, having a single pane of glass to be able to manage all your devices, not having to go between different applications, different logons, and everything. Securing access to on-prem apps as well as cloud applications with modern authentication, even with unmanaged devices such as iOS and Android devices. The ability to provide remote assistance and diagnostics for Windows as well as upcoming Android devices. Eliminating risk for local admin with endpoint privilege management, so allowing users to escalate their privilege for certain events at certain times, and it's logged and managed. Ability, again, the BYO model, while providing secure access for unenrolled devices. And finally, ensuring health and performance of those devices to reduce complexity, give users the best experience. Thank you. So what are the benefits of the modern device lifecycle management. So the whole life of a device, from procurement to retirement. With the modern device lifecycle, there's no need to maintain images, to redo images every time drivers are updated. No need for IT to touch devices. They can be shipped directly to the end users and enrolled at the moment that the end user unboxes. Simple processes for users and IT, making life simple for both those groups. Integration into device supply chain, and being able to reset a device back to business ready state to either reprovision for another user, or getting it ready for retirement. Okay, so with Insight's Advanced Exchange program, we maintain devices in our labs that are ready to go when a device inevitably breaks. So user is trying to work, they call in with an issue. IT determines that the device is just broken and needs to be replaced, so they initiate the exchange request. The device is pulled from our existing inventory and shipped out, oftentimes next day. So the user isn't without a device for very long. Device arrives with the end user. They open the box and initiate the provisioning process. After the user is back up and working, they take the old device, stick it in the same box they received it, the new one with, slaps the return label on, and drops it by their local mail store. Once that device comes back to Insight, they will evaluate, determine if it is repairable or not. If it's not repairable, then it will go through a responsible device disposal process. But if it is repairable, then we'll do those repairs, possibly as a warranty repair, and stick that back into device inventory. The inventory is typically client-owned, where we just hold a few devices that are ready to go for when that a user has an issue. We do expedited shipping, so if it's available, we'll do next day if the user really needs that device to get back to productivity. So, and then when that device is returned, it will be securely wiped to ensure there's no sensitive data, and repaired and returned to the inventory or disposed of in a responsible manner. So one of the keys to this modern management is Windows Autopilot. So just taking a look back at how we used to do Windows deployment the old way back in the days when people typically all kind of gathered in a building and worked together. So you would have someone that would build a custom image that would take quite a while, and they'd have to gather everything that was needed, typically all the software that was needed for the device, and definitely all the drivers that were necessary to get that device up and running. Then a new device would show up, and IT would take that device and set it on a bench and deploy that image that had been created to it, and overwriting all of the information that was already on it, all the Windows that was already there and ready to go, but we've just overwritten it all, and hoping that device didn't have a different hardware that prevented the image from being deployed to it. And then the IT would typically take that device and actually deliver it to the end user that was at their desk. So the image would need to be rebuilt periodically for drivers or just Windows versions or other software. It takes time to deploy that image onto the computer that already has an operating system on it. So a lot of time necessary to do all these tasks, and it's still assuming that everybody's kind of in the same building. So the modern deployment method using Windows Autopilot, instead of delivering that device to an end user or to the IT would actually go to an end user, just an off-the-shelf PC delivered to an end user. The user would power it up, sign into Wi-Fi or probably Wi-Fi, log in just with their normal username and password, and then that device would automatically be enrolled in Azure Active Directory and then Intune, and everything that that user needs would be deployed in real time, and the device is just ready to use. It never has to touch IT. There's no need to share passwords, for instance, if IT needs to provision with that user's account. So improves not only time, but also security. So what's in Intune? It deploys applications, not only deploying applications, but updates, and can also remove applications that are no longer needed or by the user. It ties in with identity management with Azure AD. It provides security with baselines and other security mechanisms that we'll get to in a bit. It does provide custom roles, so it's not a all or nothing administrative role, and you can apply policies that require the device to be in a particular state before the user is allowed to access resources. And finally, devices can ensure device compliance. Conditional access, so only under certain conditions is the user allowed to access secure company resources. It'll provide the configuration profiles that are required to the device, and also allows BYOD, so kind of tying in with that conditional access. So only users with their own device can only access certain applications versus organization-owned devices. So here's a high-level architecture of Intune and the Intune product family. So definitely not going to go into each box and what it does, but just to kind of give you an overview of all the moving parts that are associated with Intune, and all the things that need to be configured correctly for it to work correctly. So Insight has deep skills in all of these areas and can configure your environment to work with all of these pieces working together correctly. Okay, so with Intune, we have I was saying, a lot of moving parts. So integrated with Intune and the Microsoft 365 E5 license has a lot of additional features. So providing identity access management, advanced endpoint protection, endpoint detection and response, compliance management, device management, and as well as device-based data loss prevention, DLP, classification, and labeling, all done automatically within Intune and Microsoft 365. So moving to Windows 11, it was released coming up on a couple of years ago now. It is a more secure, more manageable operating system than previous versions. Obviously, it was designed for hybrid work. So as of now, Windows 11 is the primary OS that is being shipped, and the end of life for Windows 10 has been announced. It's October 2025. The long-term branches will go a little further than that, but typical branches are looking at October 2025. We are recommending starting the journey now, just because there's still a lot of devices out there that don't meet the hardware requirements. You just really cannot install Windows 11 on some of the current devices. And we are projecting still supply chain issues extending into the end of 2024. So if you wait to start acquiring those devices until then, you might not have time to complete that. So what are the benefits of Windows 11. So simplified interface, the desktop, smarter video conferencing with some of the Teams integrations built into the operating system. Intelligent actions, improve the work with touch and pen as well as voice, and it is the most accessible Windows so far. Security is definitely big with Windows 11. The requirement for hardware-based security, as well as all the operating system protections, application safeguards, and identity. So, and the management of Windows 11, Microsoft is committed to making sure that all applications that worked on Windows 10 will work on Windows 11. That's a free service. Contact Microsoft. They will either make sure there's a way to make that application work on Windows 11 or work with the vendor to update it to work on Windows 11. The cloud deployment that we talked about with InTune, being able to automatically provision and deploy everything needed to that device, and the familiar deployment and update tools. So with InTune, you can manage all your devices in a single console. And so how can Insight help with the Windows 11? There are reports that we can provide from InTune that show what devices are ready to go and which ones will need to be replaced. So you can start that acquisition of devices where they're needed versus being able to reprovision compatible devices without having to go through that. And then I think we're going to hand it back over to Norm.
Yes. Thank you, Keith. So long-term success. You know, some journeys are best taken together. So, you know, it's a good idea to partner with a team that puts you first, and that would be us. We are service strong. We have a breadth and depth of world-class organizations. We service over 6 continents. We have accolades across the industry. We are the team that you should be looking for. And this is, let's see the next slide. And where are we strong? Microsoft. You know, we have 6 solutions where Microsoft has designated us as a partner of choice for those solutions. We hold many different awards from Microsoft, including over 14 global awards for 2023, not to mention the 10 that we had in 2022. We are the people. We work hand in glove with Microsoft. We're one of the largest underwriters of their licensing in the world, and we work daily with Microsoft to make sure their solutions and our solutions work hand in glove with respect to what our customers, our clients are really looking for. And that goes back to our enterprise agreements and lifecycle management. We have a dedicated team. We have single points of contact. Again, we put the customer first. And I'm going to turn it over to Jessa. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Norm. Thank you to our speakers, Norm Anders and Keith Basil, for today's broadcast. Please make sure to register for the upcoming webinars in our Power Modern Work webinar series. If you have any questions or would like additional information, please visit our website, solutions.insight.com.